Ladies and gentlemen, taxpayers of our fine and wonderful county, you have here a typical group of disgruntled inmates. And I'm confused. They have some issues that they want to address to the warden. And they're the ones who have disrupted the peace and the dignity of our community. Hear them, if you will, please.
Man, who is this guy thinking he's trying to get in my freaking head?
I'm gonna tell you, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with it.
I sure like not what he thinks he is. I don't have to do this stuff. My rights, I don't have to.
And he thinks he understands us, but he doesn't understand us. He's never been in jail.
Clueless, man, clueless.
Wait. Who are you talking about?
This leader, this teacher we're having.
Mullinax, whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows something about what he's saying. I mean, shouldn't we maybe give him a chance?
What are you gonna tell me? I'm a black man. He
Yeah.
didn't walk in my shoes.
Right.
That's right, man.
He don't know nothing. He can't know nothing. I mean, he thinks he does, but he don't.
Well, he has to know something we don't. I mean, we're here, he's not, so shouldn't we?
Yeah, he know how to get paid.
Well, I'll tell you, I
That's his motive. That's right.
Just a
I don't
big
deserve to be
get out of
in here anyway. I don't deserve to be in here anyway. My PO violated me.
Listen, if I understand anything about what he's talking about, is to help us try to see ourselves. Don't you think that would
See
be?
ourselves.
This is a state problem, man. It's a state problem. It's their problem.
I was doing fine. I was keeping my job and doing well. I just had a few dirty urines, and I don't know why he violated me. It was ridiculous.
You need to do something about these rats. These people running around here snitching.
Oh, man.
Let me say this, now don't hit me, but I heard somebody say the other day that some folks around here can pass every test except the urine test. Doesn't that tell you something?
Well, I just think he should have given me a chance, another chance. They give everybody else a lot of chances.
Well,
I don't know.
as I said, he just don't know nothing. He just thinks he does. Just thinks he does.
Well, why don't we
I'm
just
not
wait,
gonna
why
talk.
don't we wait and hear him out, see what he has to say?
Yeah, man, if I go, it's because I have to go. I don't want to.
Yep, here you go, invading my freedom again.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, we have nothing else to do, so I said, let's just go and give this man a chance.
Whatever.
Gosh, yeah.
Well, it might look good when I go to court. That's the only thing I can think of. I'd be willing to go for that reason.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, let's play the man.
Let's do it. I can bull my way through.
Okay,
How about
well,
y'all?
at least let's hear it. That sounds good.
Oh, yeah.
Our session will continue tomorrow.
Doctor?
Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, what's up?
So, did you hear about the fire at the convent? And sisters on the 3rd floor couldn't figure out how to get out. All the bed sheets and stuff were at the laundry, so they found some old uniforms in the closet, tied them together, made a rope, and escaped. When they got down, the fire company came and said, "Weren't you afraid that those uniforms would tear?" And they said, "Oh no, you know old habits are hard to break." Okay, today
Any Bond jokes?
Today we're talking about closed thinking. And closed thinking is, ain't nobody gonna tell me nothing.
That's right.
You ever heard any thinking like
You
that?
betcha.
I heard a whole lot of it yesterday,
Did you?
believe me.
You got
Okay.
to earn respect. You want
Systems man or something?
And idea is that I don't need anybody's advice. I know what I need to know. Any of you ever get into that kind of thinking?
What do you mean get into that kind of thinking? That's the way it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. See, you think you don't need to have anybody's advice, right?
Not yours, that's for sure.
Okay. How about it's the state's fault. It's the system.
I said that yesterday.
Did you?
Not all of us took that particular position. Some of us, a few at least, are ready to listen.
Yeah, really.
Some of us are punks.
Lay it on us.
Okay, what about life is unfair?
That's
Well,
unfair.
hey, it
Yeah.
ain't fair. I know you're trying to say it's fair.
Yeah, man, look at him, he's black. It's not fair for him.
If
So,
you had,
why
if
is
you
it-
had my background, you know, it's just not fair. I had a terrible background. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, why isn't life fair for you? What do you,
What's fair about it? Look at how many of us in here. You know, all these people in the United States, you mean they only define black folks to lock up?
Oh, now that's not true. Look at all of us. We're here.
Yeah, some of y'all, they gotta make it look good.
Listen, he makes a point, but the thing that we have to do really, and I've been giving a lot of thought to this, is we have to go out and talk to our young black men and head this thing off in the beginning so that others don't get in and follow us. That's really what we should be thinking, right?
Follow us, they ain't got no choice. They gonna get locked up, they building a new reformatory now.
What do you got to say on that? Don't they have a choice?
yeah, what did you do? Why are you here?
What did I do?
Yeah.
Look, if it wouldn't have been for the rats and snitches, people out there setting people up, I wouldn't be here. I got
Right.
set up. I
Well,
got
what did
set
you
up.
do?
What did I do? Only thing I did was I got played.
You were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people.
And what were you doing?
Me?
Yeah.
I was just there.
You know,
Yeah,
you
but
said
it's,
something good.
but it's you. You were there. I mean, she wasn't there, and I wasn't there.
I didn't know that man was the police. You think I've been there if I knew that man was the police?
That's the whole point.
But if you wouldn't have been doing what you were doing, he wouldn't have been able to do anything to you, right?
Hey, they'll figure out some way to set you.
That's right. Always do. Always do.
Let me ask you this. If look, I'm here because I messed up. Really, I mean, real bad. But the thing about it is, I believe, I'm really nobody, but this thing is a mind thing. We play games with ourselves all the time, and we wind up deceiving ourselves. And so, at some point, we gotta face reality.
Yeah.
You know,
That
let
sounds
me tell you
crazy.
something. My mama said something like that last week on the visit.
Who said that?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was quoting from the Bible, said, don't be deceived.
Right,
You know?
right.
And I went back to my room and I cried.
Why'd you cry?
Because I love my mom.
That the only reason?
Well, okay, maybe I did make a mistake.
Maybe.
Okay, well, yeah, it was mine. I brought it.
Your only mistake was in getting caught.
I know I don't want to live like this. I don't want to be.
Man, I don't want my kids to have to live like this.
So what are you gonna do about it?
I guess we'll have to change.
So how this supposed to help us?
Well, first of all, and realizing that you've made some mistakes, and maybe there's some things you need to hear from other people, like what Ray's telling you. Maybe there's some things you need to hear from other people, and maybe what you've been thinking isn't all there is to think, all there is to know.
I think we're ready to listen.
Yeah, let's try.
We'll give it a
Guys,
shot.
Well, look. You're the only person that's on the outside right now. I used to be a loner all the time. In fact, I've been dealing with that just in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
But I said, Lord, don't let me go back there. Don't let me get back there in that little shell and all to myself. Let me just stay out here.
this is what you guys wanna do, it's up to you.
Look,
Okay, well,
Phyllis,
at least you can
Phyllis,
listen, right?
Phyllis, let's give it a shot. We ain't got nothing to lose. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Let's
guess
give it
we're
a
stuck
shot.
here, what else can we do?
Okay. Good enough.
You think we got any closed thinkers in the group? Seemed as if it came natural.
Teacher's name, Mullen Thatcher, Mullen something.
And it's pretty realistically typical of the kind of mindset you're challenging. And ultimately, the way they were beginning to break through something is all you can ask for. And sometimes I'll say to them, I know that you're angry for being here, but what I want you to recognize is that we're dealing with thinking that affects everybody. So even if you were innocent when you got here, this can still be a help to you if you'll let go of the anger. And so this class, if they're paying for the class, court ordered, I'll say to the class, listen, this can either be a rip-off or an investment. You are the only one that can decide which one it'll be. I've had people that decided this class was the worst, best thing ever happened to them. That is, it was the worst thing because they had to go and had to pay for it and didn't want to come. It was the best thing because they were forced to stop and think and turn the rest of their life around. And so many times you have to give them the fact that they're angry and upset. Don't try to fix the system. And don't try to justify the system. Agree with them. Kind of use the yes, yes approach. Oh, so they were snitches. If it wasn't for snitches, you wouldn't be here. Oh, okay. How long do you think you'll have to live if you outlive all the snitches? Or do you think they'll always be around? So the only way to correct the problem is not to give the snitch something to snitch. And that rests with what you can do to take power over your life. And if you choose to take appropriate power over your life, others cannot take power over you.
Our next gateway thinking error is victim stance. Okay? Victim stance is what I like to call, working with juveniles especially, is inauthentic living. Somebody give me some synonyms for inauthentic. Fraud, okay. Hypocritical. Well, you guys must work with adults, am I right? Not real, all right?
False.
False, or another word for false?
Fake.
Fake, okay. Phony, now we're on a roll. What? You ain't living real. You ain't true, okay? You're fake. You're phony. You're bootsy, all right? I don't know, but it means the same as fake and phony. I can't tell you exactly what it is. I just know how to use it in a sentence.
That's that lingo. Okay, yeah, we got it.
All right? So what we've got to understand here is their values, especially juveniles, place a high, high priority on being real, on being true. Okay? And you look at their heroes, their true heroes, they view as true. And the music they listen to, the ones they respect the most, are the ones that are keeping it real. All right? And so we turn it around on them. Inauthentic living, fake living, attacking the very idea that being fake is about the worst thing in the world you can be. All right? And this is what we're calling inauthentic living, fake living. Okay? And so number 2 thinking error, and it's also a gateway thinking error. All right? Any of you here got dogs you keep inside the house? All right? You guys ever have an accident with your dog inside? Yeah. It's an accident for you. They don't really care, right? Okay? When they have that accident, if you get it and clean it up right away, what stinks? Nothing. Now, if it happens when you first go to work and you clean it up, what stinks? Okay, yeah, if you've been gone a long day, the whole house, probably immediately, though, we got the area where it happened, maybe the kitchen or the living room, okay? It happened while you're gone on a long day and you had to go to church or a meeting at night and you come home, the whole house stinks, right? Happens on the first day of vacation, you got to go buy new furniture, you know what I'm saying? It stinks. It's seeped into the carpet, it's seeped into the paint, it's in your furniture, it stinks. Okay? Stinking thinking, the thinking errors we're talking about are the same way. You leave them in your brain for a little while before you clean them up. It's all right. If we attack it soon, we've minimized the damage. We leave it in there for a little bit longer, it starts to affect the rest of our life. We leave it in there for years and years, there ain't one aspect of our life that hasn't been affected. Now we've got to look at our spiritual life, our family life, our social life, and as we look at all these, we'll see, you know what? I do this everywhere I go. A gateway error, one that leads on to the rest of them. See, we have to understand that stinking thinking is kind of like coming home from the Y or your aerobics class, taking off your clothes, fold them up, and put them in the drawer with the rest of them. What happens? Everything stinks. Okay? So that's our gateway error, a little bit different way of looking at it for the juvenile. These are some of the things that we talk about when we're talking about what it is that makes up victim stance. Blaming others, making excuses. Those are the two big ones. Excusing things with but. See, we give them an inch. Well, I know you're right, and what I did wasn't exactly right. But, what follows a but? It stinks, that's right. But, you've got to understand, okay, we've got to call them out right there. You're in victim stance. And the first person we deceive is ourselves. That's right. Therefore, we have to understand that when we're into blaming, we're deceiving ourselves first. And once we've bought into it, then we can sell the rest of the world on it. I can go to that chaplain and tell him that it's not my fault that officer provoked me because I genuinely, deeply believe that. We use all kinds of things for excuses. You'll see race, gender, drugs, alcohol, our social status, society, the neighborhood I grew up in, my home, okay, my lack of transportation. It ain't my fault I lost that job. The bus didn't come on time. I was drunk when I did that. It ain't my fault. Okay, my parents raised me like that. It's all politics. That judge had to put me in wood. All right? The system is really why I'm here. They're running me around. They're messing me around. It's the system's fault. Or it's genetics. You got to understand. They won't let me out of here till I get my GED. I'm not that smart. My parents dropped out of high school. I can't do this. You said it. You said it. Won't do it. Again, one of the things I want to sell, I want to address the value. All right? Our kids value reality, being real, being true. All right? So I'm going to take that value and I'm going to say, remember, when you're deceiving yourself with victim stance, are you living true? You're not even being true to yourself, much less to the rest of the world. That's why we call it fake living. If you want to get out of this, if you want to pull yourself out of this pit of victim stance, it's right there. Be real. Because the first one we deceive is ourselves. Let's take responsibility and own up to what is really ours. So there's the angle I take with juveniles.
Our skit's on victim stance. And so we're going to take you right in the actual prison session of a group talking about the subject. And so I want you to listen for the error in their thinking. We've changed the names and places to protect the innocent.
Well, glad all you guys are here today.
You have no choice.
They're all right.
Well, that's all right, you know. I didn't have any choice either. I'm here.
Getting paid though, I'm not.
But you already paid. That's why you're here.
Yeah, the insurance. I wanted the
Hey,
TV.
wait.
Okay, yeah.
What are we getting out of this thing? It's just, you know, it's a bunch of crap. I don't need to be here. I was working a good job.
Right on,
Yeah.
That's good.
I did a good job. You know, I was late a few times, but it wasn't my fault. You know, I can't, I have to ride the bus.
Always
The
late.
bus doesn't always show up on time. You know, this isn't fair. You know, taking my time away from having some knocking around with the guys.
Well, now, but wait a minute.
Everybody deserves that.
I was in a rich neighborhood. The guy's rich. His wife works, he works. I don't know how many TVs they had in the house. He had insurance. He didn't even have to use insurance. He could have used his Visa card and Discover card and all them other cards. He didn't have to turn me in for it.
Tell me about it, brother. You can get another one, right? Yeah, you know it.
Well, it's just like the
That's
house I broke
terrible.
into.
Y'all shouldn't do that.
Who told that lady to be there when I broke in there? She wasn't supposed to be there. You know, all of a sudden, now they give me for a daggone kidnapping. You know? I get up there in front of the judge, and I got this big long AA resume. You know what? That judge he don't care about that.
He probably got a drinking problem himself, man.
That's probably true. He don't care about that. And I had all this good stuff going on, and I messed up one time, and they end up back in here again.
I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have that problem. I can control it. I do well with it, and I just use it for social events and so forth. And I wouldn't be here, but my boss was a female. They don't have any right working in some areas anyway. What are they doing about it?
Women always want something, ain't they?
Yeah, they are, always interfering.
I did a good job. I was there, I did a good job. Sometimes I know that I got sick at the job and I'd have to go home, but that's normal. The women have to go home sometimes, they get sick, while I get run back into this place again. I don't like this.
You a Christian counselor? You know the Bible? If you know the Bible, don't you realize it was Eve that messed up, not Adam?
Golly.
It's not my fault she ate that apple, that fruit, or whatever it was.
Thank you so much for pointing that out.
She stayed away. We wouldn't be here.
And if a sister has a problem, PMS jumps up, she can take off of work, nobody says nothing about it.
Have a
A man has a headache or something, misses a day.
That's
What do
right.
we get? Nothing.
That's
right.
Except a hard time.
That's right.
We need a break.
I
Yes.
agree.
We gotta go out and get the diapers and the milk, and they get to sit there on the couch feeding the baby.
That's the reason I kicked her out.
Oh, there you go. Good job, man. All right.
I think you guys have certainly figured out how to explain and excuse yourselves. But you have not accepted your responsibility.
What responsibility?
I take good care of myself. I enjoy life. I don't bother anybody else.
There you go.
I mean, I got it together.
And you have no responsibility to the rest of the world.
What's the world done for me? Except get me in this situation.
Yeah, I ain't hurt nobody. I ain't hurt anybody. I was just going in there to grab some stuff and get out.
I think we have successfully demonstrated what the victim's stance is, so that,
All right.
Excuses are tools of incompetence, used to build monuments of nothingness. Those who engage in them regularly rarely excel at anything. And so, having established that, we're ready to get on with it. You see, they come to us with a society that's built excuses for them. I've read in editorials, every time I want to go to sleep with nothing on my mind, go to bed with nothing on my mind, I read another editorial. And I've read in editorials about how that Jeffrey Dahmer shouldn't have been treated like a criminal because he had a sick mind. Well, if I had a pistol in my pocket and I put it out and start shooting at this guy, you could make a pretty good argument that I had a sick mind if I do it in front of all these witnesses, wouldn't you? I have a sick mind, but I think he would argue if I was in control enough to hold it till all of you got here, I could have held it longer. Huh? But society will jump in. Anytime there's a heinous crime, they want to know what made them do it. What's wrong with that question? The implication is that the problem is outside of oneself. And if it's outside of oneself, based on a bad society or bad parenting or bad something, and my class will buy that all day long and sell it if they can. And they'll say to me, well, he never knowed no better. I say, did he know to run when the law came? Well, they say poverty causes crime. Don't you understand poverty causes crime? I say, that's a lie. Let me tell you somebody that's stricken more with poverty than any one of you. And I don't think we call her a first-class criminal. Mother Teresa was born in intense poverty, perhaps did more to stamp out poverty than anybody that we know. Yet she was born in severe poverty. Poverty doesn't cause crime. Your value system causes crime. And then I tend to demonstrate that in the class. I say every one of you have an aunt, an uncle, a grandmother, somebody that you would leave the key to your house to. They're living on a fixed income, but they wouldn't take a thing, and every one of them have. And then I say to them, I want you to understand something else. Every one of you have a Me Too buddy out there in the street. You know, the Me Too buddy. I'm going to go do so-and-so. Me too. I got to do so-and-so. Me too. You got a Me Too buddy out there in the street that has 4 or 5 TVs sitting in his van. You wouldn't dare leave him the key to your house because he'd have 6 or 7 depending on how many you got. Now, if poverty caused crime, that wouldn't be the case, would it? Now, we work with this some in the school system, and in the school system, when an African American gets thrown out of class, it's because he was blind. Get down to alternative school, and the Caucasians play the race card. See, because there are more minority workers in the alternative school, so when they get thrown out, it's the Caucasians saying they don't like us. And I say, listen, your teacher ain't your problem. You managed to get your butt in alternative school before you ever knew what her name was. Your probation officer ain't your problem. You managed to get yourself on probation before you ever knew what his name was. Huh? Well, brother, I don't know whether I can trust you or not. I said, you're talking about you wanting to know whether you can trust us or not. And you're here for stealing? We let them play that game too often. There are 4 questions, basically, that I encourage. I've had about all the excuses that you'd like to hear. One guy told me that if marijuana was legal, he wouldn't be there. Of course, another guy told me if the drug dealer had been on time, he wouldn't be there. He was down in the inner city at midnight, wouldn't have been there if the drug dealer had been on time. Another kid told me that if it wasn't for that stupid hardware store owner leaving the door unlocked, he wouldn't be in placement. He was just going through the town checking the doors. And I say to them, he who produces needs no excuses. Heard about Susan Smith, you know, how that she really wasn't to blame. But if you'd known how she had been abused by her father-in-law, who was a Republican. That's what the editorial says. Now, I want you to understand something. I'm not saying that none of our clients have disadvantages. What I am saying is this. We have a job of teaching them to change the way they respond. Because adversity, when responded to appropriately, builds character. And then I share with them a man that was victimized by racism more than any one of them. But he didn't allow racism to destroy his character. His most famous quote, perhaps, is, I long for the day when a man is judged, not by the color of his skin, but by what? The content of his character. In other words, adversity, when responded to appropriately, builds character. Supposing as a recovering alcoholic, I went to one of these good old social counselors. And he would interview me and do a genogram, as they often do. And he would find that my mother has 7 brothers, 5 of whom are alcoholics, 1 that's questionable and 1 that probably isn't. And all the girls that married alcoholics. Get on my dad's side, and of the 3 boys, 2 of them had problems. And all the girls were codependent. So he says, Brother Mullinax, we now understand why you're alcoholic. He's really helped me, right? You've got to understand. What he's told me is the truth. And there is a genetic influence. But for the person that's the victim that's using the excuses, he has just now provided me an excuse to continue drinking the rest of my life and blame other people for the way my life's turning out. Okay. So it's not that I have to deny that. I say to all 3 of my sons, I want you to understand something, that you're a child of an alcoholic. And if you choose to drink, children of alcoholics develop alcoholism at 4 times the national rate. So if you choose to drink socially, you're taking 4 times the chance of the person that's sitting beside you. Now that's a choice you have to make. And so far I've got 3 grown boys and none of them have had problems with alcohol or other drugs. And I thank God for that. But you see, we cannot give excuses. And what people are saying that are using excuses, they're saying society's the problem, not me. My parents are the problem, not me. Ask them what's wrong with the system. Can they tell you that? I always tell them, yep, the system stinks, but it smells a lot better from the outside. What we're trying to do is provide you the tools to get outside and stay outside. Don't try to defend the system. They think you lie about other things too. But here's kind of the approach that you take in challenging it directly. There's about 4 questions that I ask clients usually. Number 1 is, what did you want? And the reason I ask them, what did you want, is because I want them to think, what were they trying to get? Second thing I ask them is, what did you do? Now, if you've got a child that is disobedient or in trouble, and you ask him what he did, what will he tell you? Nothing. 99 and 44 100% of the time. Now, he will either answer you that, or he will tell you what somebody else did. Had a guy in my domestic battery class last night. I said, what'd you do? Well, she done so and so and so and so and so and so and so. So what did you do? Well, what did you want? I just wanted to get some sleep. What did you do? Well, she hit me with this and this and this and this and this. Let's stop here and we'll go again. And see, the whole class is going to help me because they've been through it too. So I've asked you 4 times, what did you do? And you've told me what she did. You got any trouble kids that will tell you what their parents did, what the teacher did, what somebody else did? I had some parents come to me the other day. We don't know what to do with our son-in-law. He just takes advantage of our daughter all the time. Got her pregnant when she was in high school. Of course, you know my question. Where was she? Now, he may have been 95% the lead. But if she hadn't contributed her 5%, guess what? She wouldn't have got pregnant. I have learned in my counseling to work with that 5%. I throw that 95%. I'm kind of like Jerry Clower. Said he had an old boy that was in school with him, said he couldn't even do math. But he said, I come back to the family reunion, he was wealthy. He said, I looked at him and said, boy, he said, you couldn't even do math in school. How'd you get so wealthy? He said, well, Jerry, he said, I'm not a greedy man. He said, my father-in-law owns a cattle farm, and said, and we own a steakhouse, and said he sells us them steaks for $1 a piece, and said we sell them for $5. And said, Jerry, we're not greedy. We've learned to live just on that 5%. He still couldn't do math. I have learned as a counselor to make my living on that 5%. The second question I ask a kid when I ask him what he did and he said nothing, I say, what did you do when somebody provoked you? How did you respond irresponsibly when somebody provoked you? And that's when he'll take about 5% of the blame. Now, that 5%, have learned to make my living on that. Because if he can turn that around, his life will be different. I remember a teacher putting my name on the board and put 2 checks by it, meant you stay in after school. All I was doing was tying my shoe. I was mad as a wet hen. I thought I had a right to go pour ice cream salt on his strawberry patch. After all, he wouldn't have to pick no strawberries. I felt perfectly justified in because he was wrong. I was not doing anything but tying my shoe. You got any clients like that? They've been wrong, somebody violated them and was wrong. No. There was a reason he did that, because 95% of the time when he turned around and I was doing something, it was poking somebody or getting into trouble. And so I had to live with the reputation that I had built. And sometimes you have clients that have been victimized by the reputation that they've built. And I say to them, listen, if you run like a rabbit, act like a rabbit, hop like a rabbit, and run with other rabbits, somebody's going to think you're a rabbit. And it's up to you to change that reputation. Okay. Now, victim stance basically is blaming others for the way your life is turning out. If they can get you to focus in on what was wrong with the system, they have got you off of focusing on what it is they need to change. Do you know where this victim stance business started? Let me see if I can identify it. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field that the Lord God had made. And the serpent said unto the woman, Hath God said, You may not eat of the fruit of every tree of the garden? The woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of all the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the tree that's in the center of the garden, or the midst of the garden, God hath said concerning it, You may not eat of it, neither touch it, lest you die. Oh, he said, You shall not surely die. For God doth know that in the day you eat thereof, your eyes will be opened, and you will be as gods, knowing good and evil. And so when the woman saw that it was pleasant to look upon, desired to make one wise, and good for food, she took of the fruit and did eat, and gave to her husband who was with her, and he did eat. And their eyes were opened. They knew that they were naked, and they made themselves aprons of fig leaves. In the cool of the day, God walks into the garden. He said, Adam, where art thou? We knew that we were naked, and we went and clothed ourselves. Who told you you were naked? Have you eaten of the fruit I commanded thee thou shouldest not eat? That's a question, my friend, that could have been answered in one word, right? Yes. Now let's see if victim stance occurred there. God, that woman
the woman that
you gave me. In other words, God, blame yourself for that woman won, but it wasn't my fault. Huh? So it goes on over to Eve. What is this that thou hast done? What did she say?
The serpent.
The devil made me do it. Flip Wilson wasn't the first one that said that, was he? The serpent beguiled. Now examine their stories. Were they telling the truth? Yeah, they was telling the truth. But in telling the truth, they were shifting the responsibility away from themselves onto someone else. When your client is putting up an excuse, he may or may not be telling the truth. But the problem is this: he's shifting your focus away from what it is he needs to change over to what someone else needs to change. And if he can get you running rabbits over there, you aren't dealing with the stuff he or she needs to deal with. Does that make sense? And they use all kinds of tactics to say, they're the problem, not me. The system's the problem, not me. And I say to them, listen, if you got sardines on your mustache, the world is going to smell fishy. Now I was sharing this with a class, and remember I said in my class, there were both, in that class, were both clients that were offenders and staff. And we have two instances of victim stance. Did anybody here come in this place with a victim stance attitude? I bet we've got victim stance in staff. I bet we got victim stance in residents. What do you think, Mr. Schroeder?
Yeah, I see myself as a victim.
How's that?
Well, I was contacted by a probation department. Said that I was still on probation after 2 years of me being off. Well,
You knew you weren't.
I knew I wasn't. I tried to explain that, and she said, you got two choices, you know. You can either get locked up right now, or you can go back on probation, start taking interviews, move to this county, and be employed in this county, and you got 30 days. Well, of course, I see myself as a victim, so I didn't want to take no responsibility for myself, so I did that. Moved to that county, started taking her interviews. Well, since I couldn't drink anymore, I started using
They
more.
made you use another drug, didn't they?
Yeah, more cocaine than what in order to support my habit, of course, I had to sell sometimes, which it turned out that I sold to an undercover, narc a couple times, and
Had it been for the narc, you wouldn't be here, would you?
wouldn't have been for him, I wouldn't have been locked up. That's what I thought, but I've come to realize if it wasn't for me being in the position to get him the drugs, he would have never come to me to get the drugs. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I see myself as a victim all my life. I push the blame off on everybody else, Everything I did wrong, I come up with some sort of an excuse of why I did it or whose fault it was.
Okay. So everything you did that's wrong was somebody else's fault.
Sure, that way I didn't have to face up to any responsibility of my own.
Now, what about staff? We got any staff that's ever been in victim status?
Oh, yeah, I have felt like I was a victim when I applied for a job in order to get a promotion here in DOC. The job that I applied for, I didn't end up getting, but I felt like I was a victim because
Why were you a victim?
I just felt like most of the jobs that I could move up into were held by white males, and I just wanted to whine about it instead of taking the responsibility to move on or what can I do about it. I didn't ask myself at the time what I could do about it. So I chose to pursue a master's degree and move on, in order to further my career, take responsibility to move on.
I want to show you what purpose this victim stamp serves in both. It's serving a purpose. It takes us into a position where we don't have to do anything, right? I mean, let's look at this. When do you think you're going to become a white male? Oh, never. So I don't have to do nothing. I'm going to stay white female and die, but I don't have to take any responsibility. Since they're only going to promote, the only way for me to get a promotion is to be a white male. So I have to do nothing, right? I can lean on this the rest of my life. Now, understand something. I'm not saying that there's never any truth in this. What I'm suggesting is that I'm using this as some reason for me to be less than. And since I can never be anything since I'm not this and can't be this, or won't be this, then I have no responsibility. I can sit here and nurse my wounds. People never get better nursing their wounds. I'm not saying that guy didn't narc him out, but he's got to take responsibility. You see, once you start taking responsibility, then you get a master's. You're going to get a better job either here or somewhere, right? Because now you've taken that excuse away. Once he begins to take responsibility to the fact that he invited the narc to his place, and that if he had provided him nothing, the narc had nothing to report. The result is we have to take responsibility for life. I had a friend, for example, that is African American, and sometimes I'll have African American in the class that'll say, "You don't understand what it's like to be a young African American. They always pull you over." And of course, my partner is African American, so he says, "I don't understand what?" And he steps up to the plate and he said, "They used to always pull me over because I was black. But he said sometimes they still do. I'll go into a certain area of town. But he said, today, he said, I have a valid driver's license. I have a valid registration. If they give me a breathalyzer, it's .000. And he said today the last words are different. He said the last words used to be, Mr. Brown, watch your head. He said now the last words are, have a good day, Mr. Brown. He said my color hadn't changed, but my behavior has. And I say to them, if you know that they're looking for you, why not make doubly sure that if they pull you over, you don't have anything that hints of illegal activity? You see? It's kind of like the tree that's planted by the water. It looks strong, but it'll blow over. Adversity, when responded to appropriately, builds character. One ship sails east, the other west, by the self-same winds that blow. It's the set of the sail and not the gale that tells them which way to go. As the ships of the sea are the waves of time, as we voyage along through life, it's the set of the soul that determines the goal. It's not how much calm or how much strife. And that's what we have to teach them, because they're going back into adversity. And we have to teach them to respond to adversity in such a way that it strengthens their character. Not to use that adversity for an excuse to be blown over. I think I kind of summarized that. There's about 4 statements that I think that are important in assessing this kind of personality. And they are, I am. Maurice, you were out there, right? Not Maurice. Michael, you were out there. Yeah. Now, we went through this, or started through this yesterday, and I identified the completion of your sentence was, I am the hub of the universe, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you acted out that?
I acted out in so many ways. I always thought I was, well, I always knew well, let me stop that. That's part of it. I always thought I was intellectually a lot more swifter than all my peers.
Mm-hmm. You're sharper than them,
Yeah.
so you're the hub.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and I had to control everything around me. I had to control them. I had to control the way they felt. When it's time to have fun, I was that guy. I was the one to distribute the money. If I give
you
them
were the go-to guy.
Yeah, give them some dope on credit, and I felt like I was doing a favor. I just knew that without me, I was put there to run these guys. And like I said yesterday,
He was the chosen man.
I really felt that. With the gang affiliation and everything, I felt that if it wasn't for me, these guys would be on Skid Row somewhere. Because I had the knowledge to, if there was any literature to be known, I'd learn it, read it, acknowledge it, and give it to them as much as I thought they could handle at one time.
But they couldn't handle it like you.
No, they couldn't handle it like me.
Okay. Does it sound familiar? Did anybody else feel like you were in charge and the only thing was you two hadn't met? Huh? Jeff, you had a little of that in you, huh? Uh-huh.
Good. The whole world, revolved around me, just like him. If it was happening with me. Nobody else had anything to do with it. I put it together, I arranged it, and I used everybody else to accomplish what I wanted.
Good. Okay. Then others are. And antisocial completes that this way. To be manipulated and used to get me what I want. Was there any of that going on, Mr. Maurice?
It still is today. I have to catch myself on it every day. I manipulate people, even in conversations, to get humor with my bunkie. I'll tell him, this guy, he's supposed to be a Christian or he's supposed to be this. Watch me turn his whole faith around with the conversation, using a couple big words, and I'll just play with his mind just to get humor out of it. Whatever I want, I can say I don't want it to make somebody go get it for me because I think I'm respected like that.
Use them big words on it. You ain't talking about giant either, huh? Use some of them sophisticated words like, instead of telling him to count his chickens before they hatch, you tell him, don't commence to calculate your juvenile poultry prior to the proper period of incubation.
Yeah, that's worse. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you say.
Exactly.
Okay, others are. Then, the world is, or my world is, whatever your world is, a effed up place. Now, did you think that this world tried to shortchange you to start with, but it's really just a messed up place and you had to take charge?
I thought I had the book knowledge to know that 12% of the population is black, but 56% of the population in the prisons is 56. The disproportionate numbers made me think that they were out to get me. So instead of turning away from crime, I said, well, I got to get mine and not get caught because I know they out to get me anyway.
Because they messed up anyway.
Yeah.
And since they're that messed up, there's 56% of us instead of 12 on the inside, then, therefore, I must. Now, I can justify anything I want to do and it's okay, right? Now, have you ever got that attitude once you got in here? And if you don't answer this, I'll have the staff answer.
Yes. Yes. Very
I
much
think
so.
you sat on that long. Okay.
Very much so.
This place is messed up. Therefore, anything I want to do, I can kind of justify. Right? Now, I think it's real important for us to see this about our attitude, that when we get to flying too high, that's when we head for trouble. Miss Gilmore, you're a high flyer, right?
At one point in my life, I certainly was.
Tell us about it.
In a life before now, I was a paralegal for a very lucrative law firm. It was a law firm that had owned a Learjet, Jaguar, condos, all of this at our disposal to use. The senior attorney had made millions before he was age 40. And to me, you know, my position in that law firm was I was proud to be there and I was making good money and I wanted to be the very best. I didn't care how I did it. I walked all over my coworkers. Instead of being a mentor to the younger girls, I was a destructive role model to them because I wanted to be the best and I didn't care how I got there.
You were the hub.
I was the hub of that law office and I knew it couldn't. Now, I knew it couldn't run without this girl, right?
Okay.
Okay. And I learned to be deceptive, you know, when I would investigate a case. I was the best liar, you know, I'm proud of it, and all the things that I knew were wrong. And one of the number one rules for a paralegal is to never give legal advice. Well, you got it. I thought I was above the rules. And I was giving legal advice. I was on call 24 hours a day, so clients would call me at home. I would advise them. Attorney found out, he strongly recommended I found another job. But I was good, and he couldn't run without me, right?
Okay. Did they close now when you left?
Oh, no. And he made more millions right after that. So.
Okay.
It was very destructive for it's not as dramatic as some of the stories here, but it's just as traumatic on me and my family.
When you look at that one, that is the one that is perhaps criticized the most by your social workers and psychologists. Because they are always wanting people to view themselves as good persons. If we could just build their self-esteem, you would think if you could just give people good self-esteem, if you could inoculate them with self-esteem, you wouldn't have any more problems with them. We take the exact opposite. It's interesting that several reasons we take the exact opposite. Number one, Scott Peck, who I referred to earlier, talks about it in a book called The People of the Lie. And he suggests that the people that commit the most heinous crimes are not people because of low self-esteem, but they have an elevated view of themselves. You go over to Simoneau and Yokelson, Simoneau who wrote Inside the Criminal Mind. And basically what he and Yokelson came to believe, reluctant converts they called themselves, who came to recognize that these people that were convicted, that were classified as criminally insane, did not commit heinous crimes because of a low self-esteem. They had an elevated sense of their own importance. Interestingly enough, after all the shootings in Kentucky, when they had the shootings in Kentucky and Colorado, they were going to flood the streets or the schools with self-esteem courses. It's interesting. When they had that shooting in Kentucky, they were talking about how they needed, these kids suffered from low self-esteem. And I said to my class at the time, that's a bunch of bunk. If you'll get inside this kid's head that led this, you'll find that he believed he was the hub of the universe and that his peers were to be manipulated and used, and that the school was an effed up place, and therefore he had a right to do whatever he wanted to do. About 10 days later, they had done their homework. They came on with a news special that depicted exactly that, and the class accused me of having inside information. When you go to Colorado, you find out those boys weren't suffering from low self-esteem either. They had an elevated sense of themselves. So they did research in psychology today and made an amazing discovery that what the Scripture had taught us all the time stood the test of time, that there was no correlation between self-esteem and violence with two exceptions. Those two exceptions were the histrionic and narcissistic personality, in which case the histrionic, the person who loves drama, you increase his or her self-esteem, you increase their violence. The narcissistic, the person obsessed with themselves, you increase their confidence and their self-concept, and they become more violent. Those were the only two exceptions in terms of a correlation between self-esteem and violence. The Surgeon General just recently put out a report, I got it about 2 weeks ago, in which he had done the same study, reached the same conclusions. Well, let me tell you why I never believed that to start with. If there be any consolation of love,
That's right.
if there be any fellowship of the Spirit. In other words, if there's any bowels and mercy, if there's anything really to it, fulfill you my joy that you be like-minded. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem the other better than themselves. Having this mind in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and humbled himself, and became obedient to death, even the death of the cross, wherefore God hath highly exalted him, and given him a name above every name, that is the name of Jesus. Every knee should bow, and every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Let each esteem the other how? Better than themselves. Do you think God's word would advise us to do wrong? Do we suffer from a low self-esteem? Let any man that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. Now there's a further reason. When do you and I get in trouble? When we recognize that we're up to the test, we get down on our knees and ask God to give us the strength to measure up. When we think we've got it by the tail. And we're so all important. What happens? And is that not the way with your client? I got these guys that not only can beat the test, they can tell everybody in the class how to beat the test. I said to one of them the other day, your test was clean, but there's a problem with your test. You're pregnant. And he didn't like that. They got all the tricks in the trade. They can tell you how to beat the test. Until they fail the test, then they get to sit on their stupid chair. They want you to go testify for them. How this is the first time. And their mother gets worried about them, and they say, well, I don't know what's happened to my son. 2 days before he got out, he got caught with a dirty drop. I'm going to take him to the social worker. She takes him to the social worker, and she comes up with an amazing discovery that kid suffers from a low self-esteem. Right? When did he get that low self-esteem?
He got caught.
48 hours ago, he was top of the heap. Got any clients like that? They don't get in trouble because of low self-esteem. They get low self-esteem after they got in trouble. Is that where we're coming from? It's real important to understand that perception and to challenge the way they think. Because in this particular thinking area, they don't like to acknowledge their fault. They want to excuse it away. If it's among the highbrow society, the lawyer will play that card. He'll say to the judge, Your Honor, we know that this man was guilty, Your Honor, of laundering money. But he needs to have probation because he's been a pillar of the community. And look at all the good deeds he's done. If it happens to the drug dealer, the lawyer makes the same kind of appeal to the judge to overlook his fault and give him probation. Because after all, he made some dirty money, but he sent his sister to college. In other words, as if one's right, as if one could earn the right to do wrong. And we live in a society that is filled with that kind of thinking. And I say to them, I want you to look at it this way. If I took my automobile into the garage, and they say to me, now, Brother Mullinax, instead of fixing your flat tire, we got to tuning this car up, and it runs like a sewing machine. And we got to shining it up, and it shines like new. Brother Mullinax, we believe if you just drive that car on down the road, that flat tire will take care of itself. We've got social workers and psychologists that are doing that. Huh? Just emphasize the positive. Listen, I tell my class, you're not here to work on the positive. Your positive isn't what got you here. We have an obligation to work on your negative, because if you do not deal with your negative, it will destroy all the positives that you have if you don't deal with your negative. Let me give you a couple examples. When I was at first at Clemson, I got out of jail at 10 after 7, went to school at 8, and cut at 9. I had a GPA of 0.2. On my doctorate, I had a GPA of 4.0. I had the same ability both times. But I wasn't dealing with the negative in my life, and it was destroying all of the positives. I had a young kid that I worked with that he had a tremendous artistic ability. They wanted me to excuse him from classes so he could draw on the inside of the walls those impressive pictures. I said to them, we don't need to excuse him from this class. If he doesn't deal with his thinking errors, the only place he'll have to draw is the inside of an institution. But I was wrong. I read about him 2 years ago. He went down when a drug deal turned sour. And they buried him. And when they buried him, they buried all of his talent with him. It's our job to get them to overcome the negative. Any coach that's making a complete player will first make that kid that can't dribble all day long, because it's positive to overcome the negative. And if they don't deal with the negatives in their lives, it will destroy them. They're not there because of their positive. I'm not saying they don't have any positive, but their positive wasn't what got them there. I had a teacher the other day. We've put a positive spin on all these thinking errors. I said, do you think God gave us the 10 commandments because he was incapable of giving us 10 positive suggestions? Or do you think he understood the nature of the person he was dealing with and knew that we needed to eliminate the negatives as well as work on the positives? And so our challenge in viewing self as a good person is to get them to recognize the destructiveness of their negatives. They come in my class. What'd you do? I didn't do nothing, stole a little from Walmart. I said, if you steal from Walmart, you'll steal from your mama. Boy, they love that. And then we began to break it down. I said, did Walmart go out of business last year? No. They made a profit last year. So to whom did they pass that on? Your mother ever shop in Walmart? So you stole from your mother, you stole from me, you stole from everybody sitting in this class. I don't mind them feeling bad about what they did. Do you understand? If they don't think what they did was that bad, they might do it again.
That's right.
You got to get lost to get saved. How many righteous? Okay. Now, it's a thinking error where they have that elevated view of themselves.
Good morning. This is investigative reporter Justin O. Nebnose, and welcome to another edition of Cognitive Dissonance, the show that explores noetic dysfunctions. Now, today's episode begins by viewing Pastor Billy Bob, a.k.a. Blues Boy Chichester, as a good person. Billy Bob is the rising star of youth ministry for the First Church of Correct Doctrine and Holiness Tabernacle, Incorporated. He was just converted in prison a short time ago by under the evangelist Get 'em Quicks ministry. Join us as Pastor Billy Bob drives First Church's youth to a big youth rally in the church van and see why he thinks he's a good person.
All right, man, let's go. We got to get there.
I can't wait to hear that part about when you dumped the body off the bridge.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's all kinds of things I haven't even told you guys yet about what I used to do when I was back getting in trouble before I went to prison the last time. Hey, I tell you what, of course I've only been busted 17 times, but hey, I always get out, you know? Yeah, I tell you what,
I can't wait, Pastor.
it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Wow, good God Almighty! Hey, hey!
Ooh, hey!
Hey,
How
good luck.
fast are you going,
Praying?
man? Are you praying or? You better
Hey,
slow
I'm just
down.
praising the Lord.
Oh, going real
fast. Hey, I tell you what though, like I was telling you earlier, it was easy once I heard the pastor was coming out to the prison to preach. I said, you know, I'm gonna go over there. I know I could con that man into letting me parole out to his house. So now there I am living at his house, eating his food. I found out where he keeps his money. Yeah, hold the wheel a minute, man. Well, you know, God helps those who help themselves. So I just helped myself to his money last night. I got a pocket full. And I tell you what, at the youth rally tonight, I know there's going to be a bunch of kids coming forward. You know why? I talked to my homies, and I tell you what, they're going to make them go forward, or either if they don't go forward, they're going to go down when the youth rally's over with. Okay, we got to get there.
Hey, Officer Tim, what's this,
I'm passing this old man. Hold on.
Kid's going somewhere, is that right?
Yeah, that guy's going pretty fast down there. Says, we better watch him.
Yeah, let's kind of follow him.
You're gonna get us in trouble.
Hey, I'm being free in Jesus.
Oh, so exciting.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. There are a lot of people will get saved in that there.
What are you doing, Pastor?
Oh, I'm just trying to get comfortable. Something's bothering me down here in my leg. Don't let me run off the road.
We better slow down.
He was kind of driving a little fast, didn't he?
I'm only doing 75.
I think we better pull this guy over. Let's hit the siren.
What's the aspirin?
Huh?
Oh, hey, you dropped your
Hey, I've
aspirin.
had a hard life. I need this stuff. Under a lot
Sir,
of pressure.
could you step out of the car and let us see your driver's license, please?
Watch this. Nothing to it. All you gotta do is be nice. You can get out anytime. Watch. Sure, officer.
Is there something you were passing around in the car, but could you tell me what that was?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It looks like a little bag or something you happen to be moving around in the car.
That's
You're
aspirin.
kind of driving erratically and driving a little fast for the speed limit. You know what the speed limit is here?
35.
You think 70 is all right to drive then?
Well, I'm taking these kids to a youth conference, and we're kind of in a hurry. I want to get them there on time.
Oh, you're a pastor?
Yeah.
What church you from?
First Church of the Correct Offer.
Oh, maybe he's from the First Church of Speeders.
What makes you think you can drive that fast just because you're a pastor?
Well, I'm doing a good deed. You know, I'm taking these kids to a youth rally, and I feel like I'm doing them a favor. I feel like I can, you know, speed if I need to.
Well, you're driving a little erratically, and I think we better just take a look and see what you got inside this van. We don't really trust you.
Sure. Why don't you step over here, if you would, just kind of put your hands up on the van. You don't mind if I kind of check the van, see sure you're clean up. You kind of look familiar, you know? Have I ever run across you before?
No, I don't think so.
Seems like I saw you in our jail here sometime ago. Is that correct? Maybe, what's that, Billy? Is that your name, Billy? Yeah, I remember you, Billy.
Many better pat him down. Check to see if he's got anything on.
Seems like I remember you being involved with some drugs or something.
He's helped a lot of people. He's done a lot of good. He's helped a lot of people. I think I saved when he talked.
What, uh-oh.
Ready for what?
Hello, Officer Tim. Looks like we might be in for a promotion or something here.
Have the stance and let's pat you down and I think we're going to take you in.
Well, you can see that Pastor Billy Bob, a.k.a. Blues Boy, Chichester, has his hands full right now because he's deceived himself into thinking that he was a good person and that he can do whatever he wants to do because he is a good person. And what a fallacy that we do to ourselves when we do such a thing. All right, Billy Bob, take it, man. You're done for.
See there the different aspects of view self as a good person. Okay? There's some different aspects of this thinking error, about 3 that we usually bring out. The first one is that I can earn the right to do wrong. The good I do justifies whatever I want to do. As we said before, he made his money selling drugs, but he put his sister through school. And I have kids tell me all the time, you've got to understand, I take care of my family. I had to quit school. I had to sell drugs because my mama don't take care of us. I take care of my little sister. I have earned the right to do wrong. That's the first aspect of viewing self as a good person. The second aspect of viewing self as a good person is no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, and you fill in the blank. How do we fill in that blank depends on where we're at. I teach this class at a local group home for pregnant girls, and they have foster kids in their organization, and they have teenage moms and teenage girls who aren't mothers yet. And the foster kids say, well, yeah, I get in trouble, but at least I'm in foster care, I'm not in the group home. And the kids in the group home say, the girls say, well, you know, I'm here in the group home, but at least I don't have a child. And the teenage moms with a child say, well, yeah, I'm here and I'm in a group home, but at least I only have 1 child and not 2. There's always somebody we can find that's just a little step below us, at least in our own mind and in our own thinking, and that is view self as a good person. We call that elevator self-esteem, and that's for the third reason, the third aspect, of this is that our self-esteem goes up and down depending on what we do. You can meet somebody that is proud as they can be of the fact that they are the best thief they know. Proud as they can be of the fact that they can beat a urine test, no matter when you give it to them. I've got kids that are proud of how many people they've had sex with. proud of how much they stole without getting caught, proud of how they can run that whole institution, how they can manipulate, how much drugs I can sell. And you don't understand, I've got rank in my gang. Those foot soldiers do what I tell them to do. Now, are they meeting a basic need? Yeah. Are they going about it in the right way? No. Their strive for significance is going about in a completely wrong direction. And we call it elevator because as long as you can push those drugs, you're on top of the world. What happens when you get thrown in the cell? Whew. And I'm in a particularly neat spot because I can't go in and teach religion. I'm not a chaplain. I'm doing contracted services. And in the Department of Corrections, I challenge these girls. Tell me what it is you can hang your self-esteem on that doesn't rise and fall like an elevator. They try all kind of answers. It's family. Really, your family can't be taken away from you? Your family can't turn your back on you? It's my child. You sure about that one? They'll try all kind of answers, but we know there's only one answer to that question, don't we? And that's part of leading them to water. And we can't make them drink, but boy, I sure can get those wheels to turning. What is the one thing you can hang your self-esteem on? The one person that will never let you down, that will never walk away. And if those of you that are here that aren't chaplains per se, but have an opportunity, we're talking on break, some of you have the opportunity to legitimize yourself by taking this information to the staff, by showing them, you know, this isn't just something for the offenders, this is something for you. What is the thing that can keep your self-esteem from rising and falling like an elevator, going up and down? Okay? Now, another tool we use, and I just challenge you, use this. Use their prophets. Use their movies. Okay? They have prophets. They have people that speak to them that they revere highly. Hollywood is some of their prophets. Okay? I show Friday, the movie Friday. Anybody seen that? The youngest guy in the class. I find their prophet, Ice Cube. I play Friday. They know the lines before they come out of the TV. And we play it. I say, okay, now what is the philosophy he's espousing there? What is he selling on? And then I tell them, hey, bring in your music. I want you to show me this thinking error in your music. You think they find it? You bet they do. And they bring in their own prophets, the music they're pumping through their minds all the time. And we say, okay, now I want you to tell me what's wrong with this music. I don't need to tell you. You brought it in as an example of a thinking error. Yes, sir.
No, I'm just sitting here hanging on every word. I'm just thinking of these young, let me say this, young people running around with, small cars make big sounds. But, and they've got their earplugs on, which you can hear throughout the bus and so on. And what's being pumped into their heads to reinforce what you're saying. Mm-hmm. The wrong thinking, which has to be broken.
And I have to think back to my own experience. And if you, chaplain, would have came to me when I was 19 and told me what I was listening to was awful, I don't think I can repeat what I would have told you.
Yeah.
All right? And so I wouldn't at all tell you to go tell them their music is garbage, because they ain't going to listen. They're closed thinkers. Okay? Get their wheels turning. I ask them, bring it in. Show me an example of closed thinking in their music. They bring it to me. Mm-hmm. They say, here's the closed thinking. I say, great. And we start there. They have just begun the process called critical thinking. And when they are critically analyzing things, I let the Holy Spirit be the Holy Spirit. I don't work on them. They start the process of critically analyzing things. And the Spirit working in their life, they're going to start listening to those things with a different ear. Instead of uncritically challenging everything that comes into their mind, I'm hoping they start thinking, what is this telling me? Because I'm not going to be there to hold their hand and think for them all the time. So we can start the process and get the ball rolling. I love to do that with movies. And what I'm going to do with you is what I do with my juveniles. We're going to watch a clip of a movie. I want you to find the thinking error. I want you to write down the quote. Remember, we can tell what you're thinking how? by what you say. So I want you to write down exactly what comes out of this guy's mouth that shows his thinking error. We've covered 3 so far. All right, closed thinking, victim stance, view self as a good person. I want you to find them, and as soon as this clip's over, we're going to review it real briefly. Dead man walking, Susan Sarandon, Sean Penn. I asked kids in my class, they said, who are they? We don't know who they are. I said, you don't know who Susan Sarandon is? No. So what about the other guy? You know who he is? No. Says his name's Sean Penn. Who's that? We don't know. Says he's married to Madonna. Finally, they knew somebody. He was married to Madonna? Yeah, I felt my age. Boy, that was a while ago. What we catch there? Got 3 aspects of view self as a good person. What did he say?
As far as a good person?
Good person.
He wasn't lazy. Yeah, he went to...
I'm not lazy. I'm not lazy. What else did he say? I'm not a victim. What else? I ain't looking for no loopholes. I'm better than that old guy. I'm facing death and I'm not scared. Is he proud of something? Is he proud of the right thing? No. What else?
I'm innocent.
Yeah, I'm innocent. I'm innocent.
Everybody feels innocent.
Everybody is. Oh, yeah. They were all framed. How about this? A nigger on the gurney before me. I sure hope they cleaned it. Let me get this straight. You're a convicted murderer, sentenced to die by execution in a few days, but you're better than the last guy on the gurney because he was black and you're white. No matter how bad I am, I'm going to look around and find somebody less than me. How ridiculous is that? Utterly ridiculous. And we fill in that blank same kind of ways. No matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, that guy would fill it in black. And no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not, some people will say, a woman. We call that sexism. We call the first one racism.
Thank you, Lord, that I'm not a sinner like this man.
Thank you, Lord, that I'm not a sinner like this man. The Pharisee and the sinner praying. Which one left justified? Beating his breast, saying, God, have mercy on me. You already know the counter to this one, don't you? But if we can expose them to the idea that when you are looking down and you find someone beneath you, you can pat yourself on the back because you're in view self as a good person. You're locked into elevator self-esteem. Okay, and it's just a tool we use because, again, if we can get those wheels turning and get them to start thinking critically, hopefully they'll start critically analyzing other things that come in. And if they can look at that, and almost every one of them can look at that and hear that ridiculous statement, him on a gurney before me, I hope they cleaned it. All my kids will look at that and say that's ridiculous. And now they've taken the first step to seeing it in their own lives. That same group will now, when I say, well, no matter how bad I am, at least I'm not. Now they realize how they finish the sentence. So I would give you that tool. Use that tool. One of the things we do is we use their prophets. But the general idea of lack of effort is when the going gets tough, I quit. I'm headed for that goal. I'm headed for the pie in the sky, whatever the gift is. And the first obstacle that pops up, I quit. It's very much like this. You get in your car. You're already running late for school or work. You get going down the highway, and you've already been late for school so many times that one more means a Saturday school. And you get a mile from school, and you're just barely going to make it. And guess what you see? Road closed, detour. Now, most of us will say, okay, I'm going to take the detour, and I'm going to take the consequences that come with it. When we get into lack of effort, a lack of effort thinker slams on the brakes, turns around and goes backwards straight home and says, well, I tried. I gave it my best, and my best wasn't good enough. We talk about levels of verbal commitment, and we talk about what does I try mean. I'll tell you, well, I try means I really ain't going to do this, but I'm going to tell you that so you'll leave me alone. We talk about I'll do my best. What does that mean? It means I'm telling you I'm going to give it a shot until it gets really difficult, So if I don't get it done, you stay off of me because I gave it my best. Don't you be down in my best. All right? So in the discussion of lack of effort, I'd like to talk to them about, and this is a technique I just want to give credit where credit is due. James Joyner from Grace Seminary taught me this tremendous tool of using their profits. What are the goals that most people are seeking after? If we go out to our local high school and say, tell me what it is that's worth seeking after. We're talking about don't quit when the obstacles come up, but what is the goal on the other side that most people want? What are they going to say?
Success.
Success. How do we define success? Money. Fame. Popularity. What else?
Possessions.
Material possessions. What else?
Satisfaction.
What kind? Self-satisfaction. How do we get self-satisfaction? Pleasure, right? Where's our pleasure? Sex, drugs, there you go. Good times, right? And I told you earlier, one of them that our youth value more than anything else, because they've been, since the time they were old enough to press a remote control, been sold commercials and lies of things that aren't as good as everybody claimed they were. And they value more than anything else to be true, to be real. And when you do that, you get respect. Every one of them will invariably, you ask this question, they want respect. And I guarantee you the offenders in your institution will tell you respect is a high commodity. So the next question is, who is it that you know that has achieved all of these things? And they start naming them off. They'll tell you the who's who in their world. And it changes. It's changed a few times since I've been in this business. And currently that list would include people like Suge Knight, people like Eminem, Slim Shady, they call him, people, basketball players, Iverson, Kobe Bryant. Who are the people? And invariably, and sometimes the number one answer is a rapper called Tupac. Anybody here heard of him? Okay, that's how famous he is. And he's their prophet. And we talk to him and say, Tupac, did he have all these? We go through it. Did he have money? Bukus, boatloads. Did he have pleasure? Yeah. Was he lacking in sex? No. Was he lacking in any of these things that define success? No, he had it all. He had it all in the extreme. What did he have to say about it? In a song called So Many Tears, he says, I'm lost and I'm broken. Every step is a calculated move, bringing me closer to self-destruction. So don't stand near me. He says, I'm about to explode. And you can play it for them, or if you really want to impress them, you can quote it for them. And they're not going to question him. And so we turn it around and we say, now he had all of these things, right? And remember, the reason you respect him is because he kept it real. He was true. And Mr. True said, all of these things don't fulfill. I've got them all, and I'm lost and I'm weary, so don't stand near me. I'm about to explode. I'm on the edge of self-destruction. Now we led the horse to water. And now to get him to drink, to get those wheels turning, I ask him, what is it you're seeking after? What is it that's going to bring ultimate satisfaction and fulfillment? What is it that cannot disappoint when you get it in abundance? All of these things will ultimately be empty, and your prophet told me so. What's left? And I let them wrestle with the answer. And they'll try all kind of answers. They'll try money, success. They'll try family. I said, Tupac, he had family. His mom still loves him. She's in the papers now. What's the problem? What is it that he was missing? And they will find the answer sometimes. Sometimes they'll ask you the answer. And I love to give it to them. So I'm just giving you some tools here, and I hope you'll take them back and use them. Use their prophets. Use the stuff out of Hollywood. Use the music. Get them to analyze it critically. Get them to think about what they're buying into, their philosophies that are being espoused to them. and see if that can't lead them down the path of truth. That's, after all, is what we're there for, to take them to truth, to get them to understand a little bit about what we know so that they can begin to change their beliefs and the thinking that goes with that, and ultimately they will have better results and get what they want out of life.